wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We're live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. We have a glorious first hour. Howie Long's going to be joining us in studio. It is great to be here. Christine Leahy joining me as always on what was a wild weekend of football, period, college and pro football.
There's a lot I want to talk to you about today.
Okay. And we will get to it. I was... Years and years and years ago, Christine, I was watching a commencement speech. May have been when YouTube first started. And I heard a line that I try to live by. And it's sometimes very difficult to live by. But the line, and I want everybody to soak this up, outline your life in pencil, not pen. Now, you're driving around the country right now. Maybe you're watching me on TV. Just think about that. For all you young guys at college, maybe you're watching before you go to your class. Here's my advice in life. Outline your life in pencil, not pen. Or in other words, leave yourself the ability to erase. Don't trap yourself. Don't be 24 years old and buy that expensive Range Rover. Now you're trapped. You're trapped. Got to make that payment. Got to buy a house. Got to make that payment. Chase your dreams before you chase a new Range Rover. Chase your dreams before you chase the new house. Don't trap yourself. You got a long time to live. Houses and cars will always be there. Jay Leno tells a story years ago. He goes, one of the reasons I made it, didn't have a big family, didn't have a bunch of kids, didn't have possessions. I just went to where the comedies clubs would pay me to do jokes. And I traveled around the country for 15 years. Total freedom. So I hear all these Penn State fans that are very upset they didn't get in. This is very, very interesting. Living in the moment. And first of all, I've told you before, if it was up to me, my final four teams would be Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and USC. That's who I think the four best teams are. But under the current guidelines, and if I was a committee member, who I would probably vote for is the four teams that got in. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Washington, given the parameters of what we're looking at. But I am hearing all these Penn State fans, how can you put a team in that didn't get to the conference championship? Very interesting, Penn State. Outline your life in pencil, not pen. You do realize, Penn State, have you ever seen how the Big Ten aligns its divisions? In the East, and in the West. In the West, it's Nebraska, Iowa. You know who's in the East? Ohio State. Penn State. Michigan State. So you do realize now, 12 months from yesterday, Penn State, you're going to be in next year's preseason top four. You return everybody. I think you have a chance to really win the national title next year. Do you know the only team I think could potentially be better? Ohio State, in your division of the Big Ten, and you have to go to Columbus. So in 1 year from now, when you wouldn't go into the tournament like this year and get your arse kicked by Alabama, in 1 year from now, Penn State, you're going to be 12-1, and your only blemish is going to be in Columbus, close loss, potentially in overtime. And you won't get into the Final Four because you believe you have to win your conference championship. You won't even get there. 8-4 Iowa will against 12-0 Ohio State. Ooh, outline your life in pencil, not pen. You are so dogmatic, creating absurd qualifiers that don't need to be there. 1 year from now, Penn State is going to finish second or third and maybe the second or third best team in the country. But Penn State today is, you got to win your conference championship. Really, all of college football really wants to have that as a rule. You do realize, what if there was a rule that you had to win a conference championship, period, to get in? You like that one too? So Texas next year with Tom Herman goes 12-0, wins every game 60-7. But because they don't have a conference championship, they couldn't get in this year if they were 12-0. You're setting up all these ridiculous parameters. You're outlining everything in pen. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. You know what you got to do to get in? Have about 10 blowouts, win all but one of your games, and don't have really, really ugly low losses like Penn State had to Michigan by 39 points. But if you start setting stuff up like you got to beat this team, you got to beat that team, you got to win the conference championship. I'm not saying the conference championships don't matter, but they can't be everything. Harvard, 25,000 people a year get into Harvard. Or 25,000 kids a year apply to Harvard. Could be 50, but about 4,000 to 5,000 get in. Okay? Meaning at Harvard, you can have a 4 or 5 GPA and not get in. Almost all the kids that do get in have a 4 or 5, but all the kids that don't get in also have a 4 or 5. But Harvard has to make decisions, and Harvard doesn't box themselves in. They want women and men. They want ethnic diversity. They want geographic diversity. They don't want a bunch of New York, Boston kids. They want Southern kids and rural kids and rich kids and poor kids and international kids and Pacific Rim kids. They don't box themselves in. There is no absolute to get into Harvard. You could get in as a 3-5 student. But if you'd overcome a lot, you were great in your community, you had a job, your poor parents, they want you on campus. They don't box themselves in. Admissions departments don't box themselves in. If you just create, you got to win your conference championship. In the Big Ten alone, their alignment is so screwed up that Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Michigan State, the 4 best programs, are all on the same side. You're hurting yourself if you're going to make that demand. The other side's a bunch of Iowas and Nebraskas. Don't box yourself in. Nobody's saying the conference championship doesn't matter. But it shouldn't be everything. If Virginia Tech won Saturday, you want them in? Really? You want them in? It's amazing. Penn State, take a deep breath. A year from now, you're going to finish second in your division of the Big Ten, maybe the 3rd best team in the country. According to you, you shouldn't be allowed in because you didn't win the conference championship. Take a deep breath. Get out of Happy Valley once in a while. Incredible. The other thing everybody talked about was, well, I mean, Oklahoma got jobbed. They might as well not even have scheduled Ohio State. No. The only reason Ohio State got in was because they scheduled Oklahoma. If Ohio State didn't get to its conference championship and didn't have a great out-of-conference win, they don't get in. The bottom line, there was a game. Ohio State gets it, they won it. Have Oklahoma won that game, they get in, because Oklahoma doesn't have a Big 12 championship game. Here's what the committee said. And by the way, the committee also acknowledged that Washington got in by the slimmest of margins, despite 10 blowouts, winning their division and winning the conference championship. Why? Because what the committee said is, we're going to look at your schedule. We're going to contextualize things. We're going to look at how bad your loss was. Ohio State's loss to a great team on the road that they dominated most of it, that's a good loss. That's as good a loss as you can have. Listen, I'm not a fan of this committee. They lack guts. But if this idea that you have to put conference champions in the Big Ten alone is absurd, because you Big Ten fans, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State are all going to be top 5 teams next year. You want more than one in there, right? The SEC got more than one for years. You don't get one? We've had Alabama, LSU have a rematch in the national title. You can't have one? Don't box yourself in, man. Don't box yourself in. Save the Range Rover to your 30. Save the house to your 30. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck making payments, stuck in jobs to make payments you don't even like, but it pays you well, and you're in sales, and you're 42, and you hate your boss, and you hate what you sell. Trapping yourself. Why? God, why? All right, I barely have time to get to my next segment. I am so fired up today.
You might need a little time for your next segment, too.
Right. Oh,
I think I might know what it is.
Oh, yeah. So we've got Howie Long on here for about 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Christine said she got a big surprise for me in Herdline News.
I always do.
And coming up next, an excuse you can no longer make in the NFL. One of these fan bases is not going to be happy, but it's no longer a legitimate excuse. That is coming up next. Can you believe Great to have you in today. Howie Long is going to be joining us in less than 10 minutes. Listen, I said something last week, and a lot of you were taken back. Colin, what are you saying about Cam Newton? And I said, Cam Newton's talented, and he's a star, but he's not a great quarterback. Keanu Reeves is talented, and he's a star. If you saw him in a mall, even in Los Angeles, people would be like, oh, my God, it's Keanu Reeves. Get out your phone. Keanu Reeves is a star. He's also in a band, so I know he's talented. I don't think he's a great actor. Nicolas Cage is a star. Again, do the mall test. If Nicolas Cage walking through a mall in your town, would everybody go, oh, my God, there's Nicolas Cage. He's a star. Well, he's got some talent. He's talented, right? He got nominated. Didn't he win something? Leaving Las Vegas? He's not a great actor. Cam Newton's talented. He's a star. I don't think he's a great quarterback. A big difference. Jameis Winston, I think he's going to be a great quarterback. Andrew Luck is and will be a great quarterback. Big Ben's a great quarterback. People are confusing things. And what is happening when you're a star, and we tend to be a star-driven society, you have a lot of people that want to buy your stuff and buy your image and buy your clothes. Kanye, you want to buy his shoes. And the Kardashians, you want to buy their jeans. And Paris Hilton, you want to buy her perfume. People that like Cam don't like him. They love him. Because we love stars in America. My argument is, yeah, I get he's a star. He's not a great quarterback. And people then make excuses. Well, Cam Newton didn't have a very good offensive line. All right, Cam Newton doesn't have weapons. Because we know his defense has been pretty good his entire time now. He's got a defensive head coach, Ron Rivera. So let's look at the whole star weapons thing. Well, his weapons this year, a healthy Jonathan Stewart, Kelvin Benjamin, and Greg Olsen, I would argue are better than last year. And he's worse. So let's wipe that off. All right, offensive line. Now they're down to that third string center. No argument here. Offensive line, guard, center, guard's not great this year. But I went to Pro Football Focus this morning. The worst rated offensive line in the NFL is San Diego. I've watched them. It's bad. Phillip Rivers is completing 63% of his throws and has had cluster injuries at receiver. Minnesota's got the second worst. Sam Bradford completes 71.2%. Seattle has the fourth worst offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, the one we trust all year. A lot of football people do. Russell Wilson, who's not even a classic pocket quarterback, 65% completion rate. Let's go to Cam. Last three starts, 44% completion rate, 48%, 42%. What? By Tebow standards, that's hideous. So at some point, we can keep making the excuses, but I just gave you three examples of guys, an old guy, Sam Bradford, a hurt guy, Russell Wilson, not even a true pocket guy. They're over 64, 65%. Cam's bigger than all of them, stronger than all of them, younger than two of them, and he's hovering around 44%. Come on now. Let's be fair about this. Let's be fair about this. I'm watching that game last night. Let's talk mechanics. Man, have they deteriorated. Holy moly, have they deteriorated. I mean, he's throwing off back foot. He is winging it. Yes. His time is limited. So is Russell. So is Bradford. So is Phillip Rivers. 44% completion percentage. Now, there's a story out today that he was pulled out of the game first series for violation of dress code. I couldn't give a rip. I really don't care. That's not an issue to me. I mean, listen, they were on the road. They stayed on the West Coast. I can't even organize my clothes when I do an overnight trip. The fact that an NFL quarterback who likes fashion, who's got a bunch of stuff, he likes that stuff, for 10 days, not really totally organized on his clothes, I can live with that. I don't care. But what would worry me is mechanics are in the tank, and his completion percentage now is lower than the Tebow stuff. You just can't blame the offensive line. Do stuff pre-snap. Get rid of the ball sooner. Change things. You're the star. Here's Cam on his violation of dress code.
I should have just cleared it first. And by the time everything happened, it was just, I was off guard with, minutes prior to the bus leaving, and I didn't have nothing like to change into, as well as, me and my size. It's other people on the team, a person may be thinking, well, why didn't you get nobody's shirt on the team? We've been in California for a week, and we shipped our clothes off. So that was the big no-no.
Okay, so I'll give him a pass on that. There's not. By the way, have you ever gone to the Gap if you're 6'6", 260? Not a lot of stuff fits. And he's a fashion guy. He likes that stuff. I'm going to get, and it's not like Seattle's a fashion, and they got a nice Nordstrom's, but it's not the fashion capital of the world. I'm going to give Cam a total pass on that. 10 days.
Find a tie.
10 days West Coast. Here's my thing with Cam. For all the excuses, there are worse offensive lines. And by the way, Alex Smith had 5 coordinators in his first 5 years. Andrew Luck's had 3 in 5 years. And he's got a defensive coach as a head coach. Can I just say this? Cam's had Mike Shula his entire time there as either a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator. So he's had better continuity than a lot of the young quarterbacks. I mean, Alex Smith, I remember Jason Campbell broke into this league. Remember Jason Campbell, first 8 years, 7 coordinators? I mean, that's just unfair. Cam's had Shula backing him, around him, talking to him, conversing, communicating, game planning for like 6 years. That is way better than even Tom Brady's had multiple guys. Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniel, Charlie White. Here comes Josh McDaniel. You can't tell me he didn't have continuity. That's not fair. A lot of guys have had worse continuity. It's not fair. Let's just be fair here. Right now, his mechanics stink. He's a star, not a great quarterback. That's fair. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, we kind of knew this would happen, but the Patriots beat the Rams over the weekend, and what that means is Tom Brady is now the winningest quarterback in all of NFL history. He passed Peyton Manning with his 201st win, and Peyton Manning actually reached out to Tom to congratulate him.
I did hear from Peyton, so he's someone that I've always been in touch with for a long time. I've known him for 16 years. So yeah, he sent me a very nice note, and I've had I have a lot of respect for him and all that he accomplished too. So he's a great guy. We've shared a lot of things in common, and I've just always appreciated him as well.
I think all the all-time great quarterbacks, I think they're closer than we think.
Really?
I think in the NFL, in the world of sports today, outside of like LeBron James or Kevin Durant, like the handful of 1 or 2 NBA stars,
okay,
the most baseball players are great, but they're not. Derek Jeter could put glasses on, walk through a mall, and a lot of people wouldn't recognize him. Mike Trout could walk through a mall in Kansas City, glasses on, you wouldn't recognize him. NFL guys are bigger. Peyton Manning's like 6'5", big, broad shoulders. In America today, our royalty, in England they have the queen, in America it's the quarterback. These guys have life experiences that only they understand.
Sure.
Like Peyton, it lives Tom. Tom lives Aaron.
Yeah.
And I think these guys I think in the offseason, if they ran into each other, all of them would be like Favre and Brady. They live a very parallel life.
Well, you hear stories about, I don't know why I'm thinking of boxing right now, but boxers who absolutely hated each other while they were boxing each other, and then afterwards they kind of come together and appreciate
because you
what
know
they
how
had.
hard it is.
Yeah, I don't know that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady would be great friends while they were both playing, but I can see them. They have a lot of similar interests, right?
And they have the same thing as they can't go anywhere without security. People, I mean, if Tom Brady walks into a room and sizes it up, he's like, I'm going to have to take 74 selfies here in the next 10 minutes. I mean, that life
I think he avoids those situations.
All right.
But here's the interesting thing. There's actually 4 more records that Tom Brady is very close to passing.
Yeah.
Completions, he's number 4 right now behind Drew Brees.
All right.
Passing yards, he's number 5 behind Dan Marino. Passing touchdowns, 4 behind Drew Brees again. Game-winning drives, he's actually 3rd. I thought he would have been a little bit higher, but behind Dan Marino and Peyton Manning, but not very far behind at all.
Do you know, what do those guys all have in common? They're not all tall. They're not all strong. They didn't all have great arms. They played for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys were professional quarterbacks.
And Tom Brady, by the way, is going to be 40 before the next season starts. I think he could play to probably like 44.
No, slow down. No way. I'll ask an old guy coming up on my set.
You think he's going to get traded or
I
something.
think when you're 40 years, when I was 22, I could drink all night.
Yes.
Turn an ankle, falling downstairs, wake up in the morning and go to the gym by 6 a.m. and play basketball.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if I have a second yogurt, I can't get up before noon.
Here's the difference.
When you get old, those injuries I'm telling you, they change your life.
Yeah, but here's the difference. When you were 22, 23, you were in Vegas, being out all night, drinking, dating Kitten or whatever her name was.
I dated her briefly.
And
I only dated her for 1 month, Howie. 1 month. And I got out of that relationship. She was not stable. Yeah, she was perfect, but she wasn't stable.
Exactly, she was. And Tom Brady doesn't drink. He's got Giselle around him who cares greatly about her nutrition.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay, from best to worst, Colin Kaepernick also set a record. It's a historical low. For being the first quarterback in NFL history with 5 sacks and fewer than 5 yards in a game, he was benched in favor of Blaine Gabbert, and here's Chip Kelly explaining that decision.
We haven't had any discussions about anything, so it was just my decision to make a move to see if we could get a spark, to see where we were. At that point in time in the game, we're down a couple scores, and obviously we got to throw it a ton. So I just said maybe we'd see if we could get a spark for our team, but I didn't. No, there was no permanent decisions or anything like that.
Can I defend Kaepernick and whoever played quarterback for the Bears?
Okay.
Did you see the weather?
It's amazing.
You wouldn't land a plane in that. I'm not going to judge any quarterback who plays football in that weather.
You know what quarterback can play really well in snow? Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, he really
well in
snow. But that game is. You turn that game on, you're like, the offense is no thing. The visibility was absurd.
Who cares? Did you see the snow angel, by the way?
Yeah.
I liked that.
Christine with the news.
No, I wasn't done.
Oh, I got Howie.
I only did 2 stories.
All right,
and
go.
This is
Let's
what
go.
I was waiting for.
All right, give me it. What is it?
Russell Westbrook. Did you see his game?
Oh, terrific.
Triple-double.
Yeah.
Again, that's his 5th straight triple-double. That is the longest streak of triple-doubles since Michael Jordan.
Amazing.
Are you going to give in to me yet?
As long as you answer one question.
Sure.
How many turnovers?
It doesn't matter.
10.
Can I just tell you
He
something?
had a quadruple double. The first official quadruple double.
Fine. I'll give you that. A lot of times, how do turnovers happen?
You throw the ball into the stands when there's a wide open guy in the wing.
You're trying to pass the ball. So he's trying to get his players around him the ball. Also, he's averaging 2 steals per game, so at least he's making up for those turnovers or something. And by the way, I saw you tweet about Lou Williams and his efficiency, but Lou Williams doesn't have to carry his team like Russell Westbrook does.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Howie Long, Super Bowl champ, Hall of Famer, Fox NFL Sunday. We only get him twice a year, so we covet these moments. So everybody
Good morning.
Everybody keeps saying Brady, and I said, listen.
Well, let's straighten 2 things out.
All right, let's straighten them out.
One, there's 2 things you can't have more than one of in the same room. And we talk about quarterbacks. Publicly, they respect one another. They're cordial. They say nice things. If you put more than 2 quarterbacks in the same room, it's like having more than one leading lady in the same room.
Really?
It's a catfight.
You've seen it.
Huh.
Oh, I'm telling you, quarterbacks are very. Are you kidding?
Go into specifics.
The great ones?
Your buddy Terry Bradshaw.
Do you think Brett Favre cares about his relationship with any other quarterback? Do you think Tom Brady, who's just the ultimate killer, cares about his relationship with any other quarterback?
So Bradshaw and you were close.
Peyton Manning, you think he cares about his relationship with any other quarterback?
So did Bradshaw
It's about one thing, putting my foot on your throat.
Oof.
That's it.
So did Bradshaw actually get shingles because Aikman walked into the same room? Like what happened? I mean,
Well, Troy has that. Troy can have that effect on a lot of quarterbacks. Troy's like 6'5", 3, 4 Super Bowl.
But Bradshaw's a take the life out of the room, bigger than life guy.
He's a bigger than life guy who, as time has gone on, physically has shrunk down. So from that standpoint, but when Terry walks in the room, 4 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, when you talk about historical players, you've talked about a lot of them, and I think the common thread with all of them is it's a unique position because there's only one. There's 2 tackles, there's 2 guards, there's 2 corners, there's 2 safeties, all of that. That one guy who's the face of the franchise, and it kind of spills into the Cam Newton thing. And
what do you make of him?
Well, as a singular issue, I don't think it's a big deal. The dress code. The dress code. I think Cam is as physically, and I've said this many times, first of all, when you see him in person, it's like, oh, my God.
I stood next to him in New York.
It was like I had Tourette's. I said, damn, you're a big son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't believe how big he was. He's so physically gifted. That offense is one tailored for him.
Yes.
It's predicated on a couple things. One, you've got your right guard playing right tackle. You've got your right tackle playing left tackle.
Center's hurt.
You've got the 3rd, 4th team center in Seattle. And you know Seattle. I know Seattle.
It's not a winnable game.
It can go south really quickly there, and it's like a snowball going downhill. Before you know it, you're down 21 points.
But his completion percentage in a month.
Here's the problem. That offense is predicated on a couple things. One is it's a big play offense, striking down the field off of what? Play action pass. The offensive line, Stewart, the run game. When that's on track, it sets up those bomb plays, which Cam throws as well as anyone.
It's like football. Big Ben, over-the-top star.
It's when you start to, it's like Geraldo Chapman. Is that the left-hander?
The great reliever for the Cubs.
Great reliever. He's coming in, he's throwing 103. That's Cam. Okay? When you start kind of glaving the plate, where it's I've got to work the left edge, I've got to work the right edge, not as much. I mean, that's just the reality of it. The numbers bear it out.
Cam's a home run hitter.
He's a home run hitter. He's an extraordinary athlete who is an added dimension to an offense. He's Russell Wilson at 6'6", 255.
But Russell's still now completing in the 60s.
No, but Russell's different. I've known Russell since high school.
He's
Russell's
different.
The same exact guy that I coached against in high school. Same guy. He's just doing it at the NFL level. He did it at Wisconsin. He did it at North Carolina State. He's done it everywhere he is. Russell is who he is. Cam is who he's been his entire career. When the run game works, play action pass works, he's as gifted a player, and his ability to pull the football down. But as time goes on, and people, the NFL's like NASCAR. People don't get it until they're sitting on the fence at turn 3 and the car goes by at 200 miles an hour. You've got linebackers who are running 4.5 now. They're this hybrid kind of, the converted safety to linebacker who can run anything down with a heartbeat. If you're going to pull the ball down on a regular basis, and unlike Russell, who's a middle infielder, can get down really quickly, it takes a long time to land that DC-10 that's Cam Newton.
And he's taking
so a lot
shots.
of times he's sliding forward, and they will get you.
And you think a little bit of
If I hit you with a hammer enough, you're going to blink.
So you think Cam right now, psychologically, he's taken shots for 6 years, and it's wearing on him.
Well, I think that's part of it, but I think it's also the makeup of the football team. They're not really built to be a play from behind team, although he's done that at times. He did it up in Seattle a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Great come from behind win. Everything has to be right on for that to work. The other point is the Pro Football Focus thing. I get it. It's a good reference point. Who's watching the film? Who's giving you the information? What do they know about the specific team, the scheme, the responsibility of each player on every play? If those guys in the room were that good, they'd have jobs outside of Pro Football.
You're calling them out right there.
No, I'm not calling them out. I look at it.
Yeah.
It's a great reference point, but look, they're not coming off the mountain with the tablets. I mean, please. I mean, I can watch film and see it myself. I mean, not everyone, but everyone now has access to film.
Yeah.
You go to a Pro Football Game Rewind and everyone can watch the All-22.
Yeah.
End zone, you could see it.
Yeah.
Make your own assumptions.
Howie Long joining us, Hall of Famer. All right, Derek Carr's magic. Marcus Mariota's stupendous. Jameis Winston yesterday, to me, that's his most impressive win.
He is, I said to you, he's the Yeti. We're throwing the ball now more than ever at every level of football. Pop Warner, high school, college. It's all from the spread. It's all off a wristband. It's limited reads. It's limited recognition of fronts, pressure packages, everything. That goes for offensive tackles. That goes for quarterbacks. It's difficult to find Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is... Okay, where's the next Tom Brady? Where's the next Peyton Manning? Where's the next Drew Brees? Where are they? Everyone's running spread. Everyone's running off a wristband. We're running a play every 17 seconds. I don't know an under front from an over wide front. Maybe they should go to Pro Football Focus and they'll tell them. But it's harder to find a guy like Jameis Winston. He is...
Big, strong pocket darts.
He is a special talent. And this run they've had as of late, they made a decision. Okay, here's a rocket scientist kind of moment for Tampa Bay. Let's do a better job of protecting Jameis. If that means 6, if that means 7, that means off a play-action pass, whatever it is, let's protect Jameis because Jameis gives us an opportunity to win the football game.
I thought Howie Long joining us, I thought yesterday, and I said this, young quarterbacks have defining moments.
Yeah.
And I thought yesterday going into the game was going to be his. Derek Carr went 0-10, and then that New Orleans game was like, oh, wow. That's magic. Yesterday on the road, your running game has been hit and miss. Your offensive line's not great. You got now a brand new head coach. A little chaos. That franchise not great historically.
Who's an offensive coach, though?
Dirk Cutter.
Yeah.
But to go on the road to San Diego, a tough out, and they have to win that game. I watched that second half.
And the guy across the sidelines
is a Hall of Famer.
Really, it's a shame, that this guy hasn't had better people around him.
Phillip Rivers is remarkable.
He's remarkable.
And there's one of those guys in they're Jim Hart, or you can go back from 70s, 80s. There's always a guy that's great that doesn't have
he's
the backup.
He's a little better. No disrespect to Jim Hart, but he's better. He's a little better than Jim Hart.
But I thought yesterday for Jameis Winston, Jim Hart for St. Louis was terrific.
Look, she wasn't born. Jim Hart.
I guess my point is, yesterday in that second half with Jameis, I was like, wow. Yeah. Now I got Dak, I got Derek, I got Marcus, I got Jameis Winston, I got four, and I got Andrew Luck tonight. I got Russell Wilson.
We always say, how will the league go on?
We always do.
How will the league go on, particularly at the quarterback position? And they just find the guys. Russell took the kind of Lewis and Clark route to get here.
Yeah.
And no one thought he could get it done. He's a remarkable football player. Brilliant, smart, poised, tough, to win over that locker room, to win over that football team, to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All of those things. Marcus Mariota, I know from Oregon. He played with my son Kyle. Special guy.
Yeah.
Really special guy. Once again, they're tailoring the offense to his talents, which is great. But what he's doing is he's evolving the other part of his game.
Yeah.
Which is special. Because I have to tell you, if you're going to run, they will get you. Yeah. They will get you.
Howie Long joining us. All right, I got a bunch of stuff I want to get to. In fact, I'm gonna bring you in for another 10 minutes. So I want to extend this. I want to break early for Howie Long. And for those on FS1, Skip and Shannon this morning talking about which teams got snubbed in the college football playoff. That next, Howie next as well. It's the Herd. Welcome back. 8-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, Hall of Famer, friend Howie Long joining us. All right, so I was talking this morning with the staff. I said, New England feels like they lost Chandler Jones. They lost Gronk. These are dynamic players. Jamie Collins. They're winning on coaching and culture. That's great.
What's different?
Well,
they're winning on coaching and culture.
Yeah, but it's
Tom Brady. They had the anniversary team from the 2001 Super Bowl up. Tom Brady's the only guy left on the team from that team. How many wide receivers? How many offensive coordinators? How many offensive linemen?
So you look at
how
New
many
England.
Running backs has Tom Brady had? How many tight ends?
But Oakland's got superstar talent. At some point, does culture, Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, Amari Cooper?
No question. But I think young talent. It's you hope that this has been fast. It's happened fast.
Yes.
And you hope that young talent like Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, Cooper, all those young players you talked about, and Reggie McKenzie, my old teammate, has done, I think, a phenomenal job.
He's their GM. He is Reggie.
Yeah.
Like, did you expect this?
Reggie came up under Ron Wolf.
Legendary Green Bay guy.
Hall of Fame general manager. And there's two in the Hall of Fame.
Ron Wolf.
And Buffalo.
Who's the Buffalo guy?
Who built the Buffalo teams?
Not Marv Levy. Who am I missing?
Who are you missing?
Who built the Buffalo teams?
Wow.
Polian?
Who built the Indianapolis team?
Okay, Polian. Okay.
So I think my point is this. Reggie's philosophy, the way he approaches scouting, I'm sure was impacted by that. And you're talking about the GM in Tampa Bay, in Seattle, Ron Wolf guy. There's a tree of Ron Wolf guys in the league that are doing really well. I would make the argument, and I've said this to Reggie, and I don't want to put too much pressure on Reggie. If Reggie gets this thing turned around and they win a Super Bowl, they win number 4, it would be the equivalent of what Ron Wolf did, reviving the once great Green Bay Packer franchise, bringing in Sean Jones, bringing in a slew of players to go around with, making the Brett Favre trade. When he's down in Atlanta, 242 pounds, probably hitting the streets too much and not ready to play.
A little Theo Cubs thing.
Yes.
It's a little Theo Cubs magic with the Raiders.
Theo's amazing. And happy for him in Chicago, happy for the Cubs, was appreciative of what he did in Boston, being a Boston kid and going through 67, 75, you name it. The Impossible Dream, Jim Longborg, the whole thing.
Yeah. All right. So I've watched the Rams, and clearly we know what's happening in the NFL. Jameis Winston, they fired a very competent coach, Lovie Smith, to give him an offensive guy. Mm-hmm. Ryan Tannehill, we give him Adam Gase, better quarterback. Kirk Cousins has
taken a big step this year.
No question.
Yeah.
Jay Gruden. You look around what's happening. They have legislated a lot of defensive tactics.
What do you do with Kirk Cousins? How much do you pay him?
Well, Jay Gruden, I think, is a big part of that story.
I do too.
Dak Prescott, big part of that story is Jason Garrett. So now I got Jeff Fisher.
The Cowboys situation, that's a whole nother topic. We can go into that.
Jeff Fisher, conservative defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
Is it a reasonable thing to say that with the way the league has changed its rules, that Jeff Fisher is not an ideal fit for a young quarterback?
I think it's an interesting question. That style of offense, that philosophy of play great defense, great punter, great running back, pound the football. It's the Eddie George Titans kind of philosophy that came within a 1 yard Mike Jones, and I don't mean the rapper. For those
I like
out
that
there.
you're
I'm
not
winning a
that
Super Bowl.
knowledge,
Mike Jones. No, I have 3 boys. My boy said Mike Jones. I said I know Mike Jones. I said, you know Mike Jones?
You're supposed to say,
I said,
who?
yeah, I played with him. He's the guy that made the tackle in the Super Bowl to save the game for St. Louis.
But Mariota's got an offensive guy.
Yes.
Okay, they gave Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson offensive guy. All these guys have offensive.
Certainly, I think you can be that guy because so much. The position is so much more about leadership, tasking, making sure everyone's on the same page philosophically, leading a football team. You have to make sure that he has the best possible coaching around him.
I'm just nothing against Jeff Fisher. I just see all these young guys.
But once again, we're talking about quarterbacks who, one, think about this, have never taken a snap from center.
He never had, yeah.
Never take a 5-step drop. Never take a 3-step drop. Never take a 7-step drop.
So doesn't that make the argument that more than ever you need an offensive guru?
Well, you need an offensive guru. You need an offensive line coach. And, the Seattle situation is a great example. His philosophy up there is the guys I get out of these big programs in the high rounds are going to need a year or two anyway to be coached because they've all played in spread. Guys have never gotten in a 3-point stance.
In defense.
On offense. Offensive tackle. Never gotten in a 3-point stance. Doesn't know an under front from an over wide front.
So basically, Seattle's philosophy is we don't expect anything for a year.
No. What we're expecting give me the best athletes. Give me really tough guys, good guys, converted defensive linemen, 5th-round picks, 4th-round picks. That's what the offensive line coach in Seattle does every year. They shuffled their offensive line last night. They benched their right tackle, bring in a more physical guy. We're going to run the football. We're going to run the football. We're going to run more bootlegs with Russell. We're going to run more read options.
But Jared Goff can't. I mean, I have 5 years of Jeff Fisher.
It's I have to tell you, and I said this, I was on record on a number of shows prior to the draft. I thought they were trading up to get the kid from Philadelphia because I think the kid from Philadelphia is special.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I do. Because Carson Wentz can do all the things that we talked about.
And which Dak can do, by the way, which Mariota.
Well, Dak, it's the perfect storm down there.
Yeah.
It's the offensive line. It's the running back who's a generational player, not just as a runner, as a receiver. He's big. He's physical. He's faster.
Let's talk Cowboys. Best team in the league to you?
Faster than Emmett. Right now, it's the old Bill Parcells adage. You are what your record is. And right now, the Dallas Cowboys, I love the way they win. They're not the most talented team on defense. I think their staff on defense has done a phenomenal job of Sean Lee and a bunch of guys just flying around.
Yep.
But on offense, you can make the case this might be as good an offensive line as we've ever seen. I think it's hard to do generations. To put it in perspective, Joe Green was 265. The guy that's playing that position now is 320. The average of Terry's offensive line for the Steelers was 252. The Oakland Raider offensive line's 328.
So you can't compare generational.
You can't compare generations. But this group is pretty darn good. How many runs, and you could go to Pro Football Focus, I'm sure, to get this. My God, watch a film. How many runs is Ezekiel Elliott being not touched until the second level? It's a pretty big number.
All right, you came.
So the quarterback has had an opportunity to evolve through that when you the slot receiver, the tight end,
right?
Dez. It's the perfect storm for them down there.
Okay, we got to run. We appreciate it. You go fly to that place I know you're going to fly to, and I promise I'll visit. He stayed. He didn't have to. He's Howie Long. He's a Hall of Famer. We got to go. Second hour coming up on a Monday, The Herd.
Good seeing you guys.
This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy joining me as always. We have a Final Four in college football. I do not believe they're the best four teams. I would have Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, and USC, but that doesn't matter, neither here nor there. If you look at what the committee has to work with and the ramifications and qualifications they consider, I have no problem with Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Washington. I think this, however, if I was a television network like the one I used to work at and I could lean on the committee, I would have told them, have Alabama face two mobile quarterbacks. Have them open with Clemson and then face potentially Ohio State. I don't think you can beat Alabama with an immobile pocket quarterback. The only way to beat Alabama is a Deshaun Watson, a Johnny Manziel, a J.T. Barrett, a guy that can move, and Washington does not provide that, so they're going to get smoked. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Washington, I don't really care the order now. There it is. I'm okay with it. Now, I was saying this earlier, too many people are getting caught up on, well, Ohio State didn't win their conference championship. I am not paralyzed by that. And the reason I'm not paralyzed by that is because these college football divisions are so absurdly uneven. In the SEC, virtually all the good teams are in the SEC West. The SEC East got Florida as their champion. Did you watch that Florida-Alabama game? It was done in 5 minutes. In the Big Ten, one division has Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. The other's got a bunch of Iowas. So the idea that you have to get to the conference championship game next year, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, especially Ohio State, Penn State, are going to be two of the top 5 teams in the country. They bring back everybody. And the recruiting's going through the roof. One of them is not going to get into the conference championship and easily they'll be the second best team in the conference, and they may be the third best team in the country. So you want me to create a system where you have to get into the conference championship? Last year, Iowa got in and didn't even play Ohio State and had this absurdly weak out-of-conference schedule. So Iowa got in last year, not this year, to the Big Ten championship, didn't have to play Ohio State, won one big game in the regular season all year. Then they get to the championship game and lose. And they almost won it. And then when they played Stanford in the Rose Bowl, they were down 35-0 in 9 minutes. You can't create a format where you absolutely have to win your conference championship. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck with Iowa's completely over their skis. I think it should matter, but I don't think it should be the be-all, end-all. And remember this, when you're talking about the best of anything, the best hotels, if you're talking about the best models, and one of them gets to be on the cover of Glamour magazine or whatever popular magazine, and they're models, when you're talking about the best, it's inches, not feet. It's a pimple here, a pimple not there. It's just, you can't, it's thin. You have no idea. It's subjective. When you get to the end of a year and it's Penn State, excellent team. Ohio State, excellent team. Clemson, excellent team. Washington, excellent team. Alabama, excellent team. You got to contextualize everything. In fact, the way I look at it in college football, I even contextualize the losses. To me, there's like 5 different levels of losses. The worst loss is you just get crushed by a terrible team. That didn't happen this year. The second worst loss is you get crushed by, a decent team. Penn State got crushed by Michigan. The second worst loss is you're crushed. You know what I mean? So the worst thing you can do is just get blown out as a loss. But the next kind of loss is you get beat barely by a good team. And then there's the best kind of loss, which is what Ohio State did. Ohio State lost to a really good team on the road, a game in which they dominated for most of it. That's as good a loss as you can have. So Alabama had no losses. Ohio State had the best possible loss you could have. The idea that all losses are the same. Penn State had 2 ugly losses. They got the you-know-what kicked out of them by 39 points. Then they lost a 4-loss Pitt. So Penn State had 2 bad losses. Ohio State had none. The first 2 teams, the Alabama-Ohio State, everybody's upset with Ohio State. Ohio State had the best possible loss you can have. So contextualize everything. If you're talking about the best hotels in the country, Peninsula, Mandarin, Four Seasons, Ritz, they're all amazing. They're all the best hotel the average American will ever stay at. If you are a travel magazine and have to rank them, you go down to thread counts. You're counting everything. The softness of the pillows, the quality of the hot fudge sundae for your kids. Again, when you're considering the best teams, the best models, the best airline, the best hotel, the best hedge funds, it's inches. And Penn State had 2 of the worst kind of losses you can have. A blowout loss and a loss to an average 4-loss team. Ohio State had the best 1 loss you could have. Loss on the road, a game in which you dominate a really, really good team. Ohio State gets in. I got no problem with that. All right, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong.
Where Colin was right?
Listen, media generally don't have any courage. They're afraid to go out on a limb before a story really, truly breaks. Because then they'll go on Twitter and people will mock them. Oh, my God. I don't have that problem. I said 2 years ago the Raiders were the most improved team in the league. They were. I said this year they would win the AFC West. They will. And I said Derek Carr 5 weeks ago was the MVP. He is. We have been on the Raiders' ascension before anybody else. And this weekend, another example, they are for real.
Where Colin was wrong.
Boy, I had been red hot in the Blazing 5, but I had a 2-3 week. I really rolled the dice on the New York Giants. I didn't think they'd beat Pittsburgh, but I thought 6 points is a lot of points, 5-6 points, and the Giants are usually good as a dog on the road, and they had so many wasted opportunities. I swear to God, they're the only 8-4 team I've ever seen that I think is absolutely, completely pedestrian. What do they do exceptionally well? Nothing. And they're 8-4.
Where Colin was right?
Well, I said going into the weekend, I picked all the conference championships right. I said Alabama would destroy Florida. They did. I like Clemson and Washington to win. And I took underdog Penn State to beat Wisconsin. I believe Penn State and USC playing in the Rose Bowl is the perfect matchup. They're mirror images of each other. Playmaker at quarterback, young rosters, terrific perimeter players, star running back, and a defense that at times can be pretty productive. That's going to be one of the best games. The Rose Bowl, Penn State, picked them to beat Wisconsin. They are going to be like USC, a top 5 team going into next season.
Where Colin was wrong.
But I didn't, over the course of the year, get enough teams in the Final Four in my predictions. I had Clemson, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Michigan finished 6th. Oklahoma finished 7th. I also had Alabama at 5 because I didn't know who their quarterback was. And I had Ohio State at 6 because they were too young. So I only got one team in, that was Clemson. But I also had Tennessee in, and they stink. I made a big mistake in something I learned from. To become a Final Four team, you have to have an elite coach. And Tennessee's got a bunch of good players. They don't have an elite coach. Like most of the SEC, outside of maybe Alabama, maybe A&M offensively, they're poorly coached.
Where Colin was right?
When the Buffalo Bills signed dual athlete Tyrod Taylor, I said, listen, he's fun, but he's small, and there's no market for him. There's no reason to give him a long-term contract. There's no market for him. Nobody's trying to get Tyrod Taylor. He can win you games, and he's what you got, and you should re-sign him for a year, but there's no market for him. And what did the Bills do? Went and signed him to a big fat contract. Overpaid for him. Well, yesterday's a great example. Buffalo's final 2 possessions, they needed him to make a great play, interception, fumble. He is a very athletic kid who doesn't throw particularly well from the pocket, who is small and can get hurt. They take a beating. Not going to drive the ball in the winter weather in a city that's got the toughest winter weather in the league outside of maybe Chicago and Green Bay. What was Buffalo doing? I don't get it. That's why they're Buffalo.
Where Colin was wrong.
I love the Indiana Pacers coming into the season. Right now, they wouldn't be a playoff team in the East. They're 10-10. They got a new coach. They got new players, and their chemistry stinks. I really thought they would be going away the number 2 seed in the East. I really like their roster. But, man, it just goes to prove how big chemistry is in sports. They're not very good. And I love the T-Wolves. I call the T-Wolves. I thought they were going to be like a real player now. They're 6-14. They brought in a defensive-minded head coach, and maybe they made a mistake because they can't hit a three-point shot. They can't hit a three-point shot. So what they need is somebody to elevate them offensively. They could use a Luke Walton. What they went and got is more of what they are. They've got good young defensive players. They have a defensive coach. They're not good enough offensively. I'm not sure if they can turn it around. They can't hit threes in a 3-league.
Where Colin was right.
When Doug Peterson got hired for Kansas City, I said, okay, so you went from Andy Reid, who you ran out of town, who's one of the smartest coaches in the league, proving it in Kansas City. What a win for them yesterday in Atlanta. Then you hired Chip Kelly, whether you like him or not offensively, unique. And then you hired Doug Peterson. And I said, so you ran Andy out of town, and you ran Chip out of town. You're telling me that Doug Peterson's way better. Well, Carson Wentz is regressing. They have the second most penalties in the league. And if you watch the Eagles, they make the same mistakes over and over. They've lost 4 of 5. And even when they've won this year, it's because of Jim Schwartz putting in a great defensive game plan, not an offensive game plan. So if you're going to run Andy Reid out of town, you better have somebody that's better than Andy Reid. And if you think there's a bunch of guys better than Andy Reid, you don't know what you're talking about. Because after Belichick, he's the best coach in the league, in my opinion. And if you're going to run off Chip Kelly, after his first 2 years, they go 10-6, but he's a bum, he's no good. So you better have somebody. Could Doug Peterson do what Chip Kelly did at Oregon? I don't think so. Could he do what Andy Reid's doing in Kansas City? Yeah, I don't think so. So you're going to start running coaches off. You better watch out about hiring a guy who's never been a head coach. All right. I got a bunch of stuff today. I just all worked up. These Mondays, man, I went out to eat last night. I told my wife, I just can't. I'm going to just talk a lot.
At dinner you did?
No. My wife has come to terms. She just knows that my Sunday nights, I'm exploding because I have all this stuff to talk about after the weekend for Monday.
Oh.
So she just sits there and just
listens to you.
Yeah.
I feel her pain.
No, come on now.
I'm just kidding. I love you.
There are times I listen to her.
Like once?
No.
Like when I talk, you tell me to stop because you have something else to do. So do you do that to Ann?
We had Howie long. No, I don't tell my wife to ever stop talking. No,
that's smart.
That would be the dumbest thing I ever did.
Good.
Like tonight, she has a very busy day today. So tonight when I go home, my wife talks.
Okay.
And I'm just a listener. I'll do this.
Uh-huh. And are you actually listening to her?
Absolutely. Yes, respectfully.
And participating?
God, what are you, a therapist? Yeah, I'm participating. What do you mean participating? I'm listening. Isn't that
actively listening?
Oh, God.
Not just
you women in your actively. Can't we just listen? Do we have to be active
No, because you're
listeners?
probably not listening. You're probably thinking about like your Blazing 5 or something in your head.
Well, yeah, I am.
I know. She probably knows too.
God, you women are all the same. I don't want you listening. I want you actively listening. You and Ann are
Makes
texting.
A lot of sense.
That's what she's always talking about, active listening. Mm-hmm. I'm listening. Here, I'm active. My heart's working. I'm active. How active do I? It's hard enough to listen to her stories, but I'm active.
Ann has great stories.
Active listening. Every guy driving around is just going, God, Colin's totally right on this.
For all the guys driving around right now, listen to me.
No.
Actively listen.
Every guy driving right now is like, my wife says the same thing. Are you actively listening?
Why do you think all women say the same thing? If you just would actually listen, there wouldn't be a problem.
Because you try to change us and you're unrealistic?
Well, sometimes guys need to be changed.
God, you can't win an argument with you.
Good.
It's ridiculous. Seriously.
Next up, Russell Westbrook.
Okay, I haven't even gotten to any of my stuff today yet. I might as well just do this show again tomorrow with all the stuff. I haven't even gotten to anything yet. So I'm so excited. Coming up next, all right, I'm going to lay the playoffs out. Yesterday was a magnificent day, but here's what happened in the NFL. 10 teams got eliminated from the playoffs. Not mathematically, but they're out. And there's one bubble team. There's 9 bubble teams. One's a total fraud. That's next. All right, welcome back. Great to have you in. Mike Lombardi in 10 minutes. He says there's a game that's not being talked about that was easily the most influential game in the NFL tomorrow. That's 10 minutes. Mike Lombardi, this is The Herd. It's so nice to have you. 877-757-HERD is our phone number. 877-757-HERD. Christine Leahy joining me as always. So yesterday, every game except one had playoff implications. Yet in 1 week, this morning, we got 10 teams that are basically toast. The Jets are done, the Bengals are done, the Browns are done, the Jags are done, and the Chargers are done. They're done. Okay, that's 5 teams AFC done. You also have 5 teams in the NFC that are done. The Eagles are done. The Bears are done. The Panthers are done. The Rams are done. And the Niners are done. So let's look right now at the AFC playoff picture. Yeah, here's the teams that are in. Raiders, Patriots, Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, Broncos. Now, we got a ways to go. We got a month here. There are 5 teams on the bubble in the AFC. The Dolphins, Steelers, Bills, Titans, Colts. I buy all of them as potential playoff teams. Andrew Luck, Marcus Mariota, Big Ben, and I think Ryan Tannehill improved with Adam Gase could be a playoff team. None of those teams would embarrass themselves in the playoff. They either have a great coach, a great quarterback. Buffalo's a total fraud. In the AFC, even though Buffalo's one of the teams in the hunt right now on the bubble, they're a fraud. They're not good enough at quarterback. They're not good enough at head coach. They get worked in those two. Rex Ryan's going to be sitting and doing television next year, and he's going to be great on television. But they're not well coached, and they're not brilliantly quarterbacked. Buffalo's a fraud. So in the AFC, the playoff picture, that's who's in. That's who's in the hunt. Don't buy Buffalo. They're not really in the hunt, even though mathematically they are. In the NFC, here's the way the playoff picture looks today. Cowboys, Seahawks, Lions, Falcons, Giants, Buccaneers. Those teams are in. They all feel like at times they can be a playoff team. In the hunt, Redskins, Vikings, Packers, Arizona. I give Arizona 1 more week, and I don't feel great about it. They're about ready to be a fraud, but I'm going to keep Arizona in 5-6-1 because I do think they have an elite offensive coach. They've got a tremendous star running back. They have Larry Fitzgerald, and their roster overall is better than average. So the NFC is still wide open. Now, I don't think much of the Giants is an 8-4 team. I like Tampa more at 7-5 because Tampa does some things absolutely really, really well. Giants don't do anything well, but they're just 8-4. But they don't do, I mean, you watched that game yesterday. What do the Giants do well? Seriously. Like, they have stars. JPP's a star and Beckham's a star and Landon Collins is a star, but the sum of their parts, what do they do well? They don't do anything that well. So I just don't buy into them. Guys, if you're wondering whether your shirt's too long to wear Untucked, probably is. Untuckit.com. Save 15% off if you put in sports. They now have a store in Los Angeles on Melrose Avenue. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
This was, I think, the story of maybe the season. It was really cool. Eric Berry, his first time returning to Atlanta since he was there getting treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma, So obviously he recovered from that and was able to go back and play. And in this game specifically, he had a pick 6 and a pick 2 to win the game. And after the pick 6, he gave the ball to his mom. After the game, he explained why that was so important to him.
I just knew I made my mind up before the game that I was going to give her the ball when I got it. So, but I could try to give her whatever. You know what I'm saying? It won't amount to the things she's giving me and my dad as well. So many nights I just was crying on their shoulder and, trying to make sense of everything that was going on. And they just kept telling me, just keep pressing. You'll be back. You'll be able to play the game the way you want to play the game.
I love stories like that. Stories of overcoming and
it was really cool, and it coincidentally happened to be the game where the players were all wearing cleats to represent their different charities. So he was wearing one for Hodgkin's lymphoma on this exact game. So everything just kind of came together. He was able to spread his message about that, give the ball to his mom. Just really cool.
Not just because of what he did yesterday, but if you said who are like the 5, take quarterbacks out of it, and you said who are the 5 best players in the league, you'd say like Khalil Mack, Gronk when he was healthy, Odell Beckham's obviously an absurd talent, and you'd put him in there. Like, he really is, he is just a remarkable player.
Yeah, and it's good when you see guys, really good guys, turn out to be great
Great
players
story.
as well. Rob Gronkowski had his back surgery on Friday, and in case you were wondering whether he would kind of take the spirit away from Gronk, you don't need to worry anymore because he posted this video as soon as he got out.
Step 1, we get the kid on his feet. He's back in action. Dance floor tomorrow night. Here I come. Get us Walker. We're gonna pimp it out. Throw some lights on that. Pimp Daddy Rob.
So he's doing just fine after his surgery.
You ever go to a hospital, Christine, lately?
Yes. Why?
Because I watch Gronk, 6'7", 240, and you see him walking around like that, man. Like when I had to go to a hospital about a month ago for that thing, man, I come home and I eat kale shakes and I do sit-ups and I even look at what a hospital and a surgery does to Gronk. Look how big and strong he is.
Right.
If you ever want to if you ever get sloppy and lazy in life, you start smoking and drinking too much, go to a hospital waiting room. If that doesn't provide clarity on a place you don't want to be in life. Last time I was in that hospital waiting room, I literally went home and jogged. I went home and ate salads.
Oh, so your message is you want to do everything you can to avoid.
Look what that hospital does to him. This world-class...
He seems all right. He wants to go to a dance party.
Dude, he was moving 1 mile an hour. You see how his hips were going? He could bear... I'm going to tell you something, man. Hospitals are... man, my mom used to be a nurse. She said, I see people in chronic pain. Of all the wishes in life, don't worry about money. Wish for health.
Well, also, in case you were wondering, Jay Glazer claims that Rob Gronkowski told him he has no plans to retire, plans to be back on the football field, because there were some people questioning whether or not he'd be able to come back.
Gronk's a football player.
He's
a football player.
Try.
Yeah.
And finally, the Redskins lost yesterday, which gave the Cowboys a playoff berth. So after the game, Jay Gruden was asked about the Redskins' chance at making the playoffs.
Ooh.
There's no talk about playoffs over here. We're trying to win the next game. We're not even close to even thinking about the playoffs right now. So a lot's going to happen these last 4 games. And if we get an opportunity to play in them, great. If not, we're going to do the best we can against Philadelphia. That's all I know.
I'll tell you what. That is, I don't care what their record is. That's a real football team. Like, man, Washington has been in some close games. Every time I watch Washington, see, they do things well. New York does nothing well and has had the schedule, so New York record's better than Washington. Washington does a multitude of things well, but they don't have the record of the Giants. Have they played yet? Have the Giants played Washington? The Giants beat Washington? They shouldn't have. I swear, Washington's a better team than the Giants. And I want them to prove it eventually.
Oh, there you go. That's a hot take for the day.
All right.
That's the news.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Former NFL general manager, vice president, player personnel, special assistant to the Patriots. He's got a new podcast, Make Me Smarter Football podcast with Nick right now on iTunes. All right, so I'm told you think a game yesterday where all of us talking heads are not talking about it. You thought it was the game of the day, influential in the league.
Yeah, I think Kansas City, they're the sleeping giant of the NFL. We don't even discuss it, and they go into Atlanta, play 5 quarters against Denver on the road, travel to a playoff-caliber team, Atlanta. I don't love their defense, but they're a playoff-caliber team, right?
Sure.
And they win the game. And we come out of there talking about, are you impressed with the Raiders' win versus Buffalo? Come on, give me a break.
So you think Kansas City's real?
They're for real. And then Thursday night's going to be even more for real. Look, I've been critical of the Raiders, and I think the Raiders are a good offense, but there's no gimme that they're going to win the division. If they lose in Kansas City, which is not an easy place to win, how do they win the division? They would be 2 games behind Kansas City and a game in the loss column.
So basically, if Kansas City holds serve at home,
they're going to win this thing out. And the Raiders are a wild card. And we're talking about the Raiders. I like the Raiders. I'm not killing them. But Kansas City is the sleeping giant. Andy Reid has the greatest thing going. Nobody's paying attention to my team. All I just keep doing is winning.
You know, I've been a fan of Andy for years, and I thought he got railroaded in Philadelphia. Now, if we say, listen, Belichick's, he's the Saban of the sport, right? But you start looking around, Sean Payton obviously offensively, but Andy Reid's an offensive guy. He goes to Kansas City. Since he arrived there, look at their defensive personnel.
Right.
He's an offensive guy.
Right. And when he got there, Houston was there. Tom Bahali was there. They draft D Ford, but they've improved their defense. And I think Andy has done a better job. And I used to say this all the time when Andy was in Philadelphia, that he should outsource his game management to India because he was never very good at it. So, but I think he's improved with it. I really do. I think he's gotten better. Like, he's the only team in the league this year that played the Raiders the way you have to play the Raiders. He eliminated the big play. 24 yards was the biggest game of the day.
When Kansas City played
Kansas City played them. Now, it was a wet day. Carr had a hard time throwing the ball in the weather. It really bothered him. But they limited the big play. He controlled the ball 36 minutes. He ran it. He set the pace of the game.
So you're a big pace guy.
I believe this. Basketball coaches know this better than anybody. You got to set the game up to play it how you're going to win it. Basketball coaches do this all the time. They say, if the game's in the 60s, we're going to win it. If we let this game get to the 80s, we're not.
You hear that all the time in basketball.
All the time. Yesterday, the Bills needed to say to themselves, we need to keep this game in the low 20s because if it gets to 30s, we can't get there. They didn't. They couldn't do it. They couldn't control enough.
If you would have been Buffalo yesterday, would you have huddled?
No, I would have milked that clock all the way down.
So you would have gone to the line? And
I would have pulled the four corners. Dean Smith would have come out of the grave, and I would have just moved them all around. No, play the Raiders. You got to have the ball because if you give them the ball and you give them too many at-bats, they're going to hit some home runs.
Yes.
So you got to limit how many chances you have.
Okay, here's Kansas City, the play of the game, Chiefs-Falcons. Eric Berry, as good an athlete as the NFL has,
right.
Unbelievable talent, 2-point interception return. I'm told the play-by-play is good. Roll the tape.
Devin Coleman is the running back. Now Ryan will throw. It's intercepted. This can be returned for 2. This can be points for Kansas City. It would give Kansas City the lead. It's Eric Berry. 40, 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. It is a 2-point conversion the other way for Kansas City.
How about that?
Great. Now, what the fans have to know about that play, and every time you watch a goal line play from here on, you need to know this. When you throw the ball at the goal line, at the front line has to be low. At the back line, it has to be high. If you throw it high on the front line, that happens. It gets picked off.
So what do you explain to the audience what you mean?
Okay, so what Matt Ryan did there, as the receiver was coming across, he needed to throw the ball down in the dirt.
So there's nobody else can get it.
No one else can get it.
Big Ben does this very well.
No one else can get it. It's low to the front line. It's high to the back line.
Back line, it's high because eventually if the receiver doesn't get it, the fans do.
Dwight Clark catch. Just picture the Dwight Clark catch. That's the perfect way to throw the back line. The front line is low. And what he did is throw it high, and now the ball goes the other way, and they win. Great play. Kansas City wins. Now, could Kansas City – then they run the clock out. Kansas City has the ball. They hold it. Atlanta comes back. Kansas City runs the clock out. Atlanta never got the ball again. At home, on the road, they did on the road in Atlanta. They never got the ball back. That's an impressive win by Kansas City.
Okay, so you've been on this whole Aaron Rodgers thing, Cowherd. You're too critical. They don't have any players, and I'm like, I think Aaron's talented, but he's a pain in the butt. So you are probably all right. So why is Green Bay good now?
Well, I think finally they have a running back that they put on the field that's not a wide receiver that gives them some help. I think Jared Cook gives them some help.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a better job of trying to balance their team out and not try to put the whole game on. And look, Adams has done a good job making plays. Monday night he made a couple sensational catches. So Aaron's getting some help, no question. But I think Aaron needs a running game. He needs a play-action pass game. He needs to be able to do some things that help him, too. No one player can just go out there and win it on his own, and I think that's what we saw, and I think that they finally did that.
Yeah, he made a couple of absolutely great throws. His Aaron starts slow sometimes in September, but by December, let's be honest, maybe it's weather, maybe it's Aaron just, some teams get it going. Pete Carroll's teams usually take a while. Aaron's a really good December quarterback.
Yeah, and that weather, look, that's what we got 4 weeks to go here. That weather's going to be more prevalent than it is going to be nice sunny days. It's going to happen Monday night in New England. Who knows what that weather could be when
Kansas City, Oakland.
Kansas City, Oakland. It could be and we saw this, and I don't know if this is to be a fact, but Derek Carr struggled to throw the ball against the Raiders in the rain. Against the Chiefs in the rain. It wasn't a pretty day for him that day. So if it's a bad weather day, I don't know what that's going to be like. I think the Raiders are better suited for a perfect track. I think when it's really nice, then all their skill really starts to show.
Okay, so I made a big mistake in my Blazing Five. The team I rolled the dice on, I said, listen, the Giants are a road dog. They're getting 6 points. Forget about the line, though. You have been selling, you're the one that said that this team doesn't do anything well. So here the Giants sit 8-4, and I watched that game last night. They lead the NFL in one category, wasted red zone opportunities. God, I want to ask you another question. Do they become too beholden to Beckham? 2 weeks, Victor Cruz didn't have a catch last night. 2 weeks ago, Shepard didn't. Or he had one catch. Is this team too obsessed with getting the ball to Beckham?
I think they're too predictable offensively. Look, I make fun of the Cheesecake Factory menu that McAdoo has in front of him. It's 3 pages. It's volume. I mean, War and Peace was shorter than his play list. But the reality here is his plays are predictable. Like, I'm telling you, I'm sitting at home yesterday, and when Larry Donald took a flex split out, I'm screaming, why pump, because they were going to throw it to Larry Donald. And Lawrence Timmons seen that 1,000 times. He picks it off. I think the Giants' problems are twofold. I think their offensive line's not very good, and I agree with you. I don't think they spread it around. I don't think they do what Dak Prescott does in Dallas, which is utilize all his skill players.
Yes.
And I think their offense, because they're in one formation all the time, they don't do enough to help Eli. This conversation about Eli is the same one we had about Aaron Rodgers. It's about players, not plays, and I think when you get into playoff time, you got to have some plays that help the players out, because everybody knows what they do well.
So why would Ben McAdoo, an offensive coach, run an unsophisticated offense with the same sets?
Well, that's what he knows. That's where he's from. I mean, it would be like Emerald cooking at a restaurant, Emerald Lagasse, and then as one of his shoe chefs goes somewhere else. That's what he knows. He learned the offense from Mike McCarthy, and he hasn't put any of his spin on it. He hasn't changed what he does, and everybody knows it. You're going to get a screen on 2nd and 10. You're going to get you've got to be prepared for it, and he's very predictable in what they do, and I've been saying it all along. And what I make fun about is the fact he's got 3 pages of 11 by 24 notes that roll over with postage notes on them. Like, where are all those plays coming from? Tell me where they are. How can you run all those good? You can't run all those plays good, and I think that's what happens to the Giants.
So, Jared Goff. It's easy to beat up on Jeff Fisher, but I look around. Dak has an offensive coach.
Right.
Winston now has an offensive coach.
Right.
Carson Wentz has an offensive coach. Andrew Luck's got a defensive coach. He's struggling.
Right.
If you look around, a lot of the young quarterbacks who are flourishing, Mariota, that guy's an offensive coach. Here's what I say with Jared Goff. He not only got a defensive coach, he got the most conservative, he got the John Fox. So, I mean, I look at Jared Goff, and I reserve the right to judge Jared Goff because, Mike, I don't believe he's getting a fair shot here with his staff.
No, because, look, yesterday going in the game, we talked about this on the pregame show. He threw 63 passes before that game. 55 were in shotgun. So Belichick and the defensive staff in New England smart enough to know that if he's under center, it's probably not a pass.
So basically, when he lined up under center yesterday,
blitz. Take away the run, blitz, let's go. And then when he's in shotgun, why not blitz? Because he's going to have to deal with it. It was an easy game plan. And I get where you're going with the offensive coaches, but I think your team's personality, if I were a GM and wanted to hire a coach, I'd want a defensive head coach, understand it, because I want my team to be really tough. But I also know the problems are finding the right offensive coach to blend with you. And I think that's the challenge. And I think that's what Jeff Fisher doesn't have, is a really good he hasn't had a good offensive staff that's creative and can utilize the skill set of his quarterback. And I think what you're seeing with Mariota, what you're seeing with in Tampa Bay with Dirk Koetter, you're seeing guys that are utilizing the skill sets of their quarterback. And they've been fortunate enough to find defensive coaches that help them. Now, Tennessee's defense isn't very good. I think Tampa's an unsung defense. I think they're playing really well. They surprised me. They caught me off guard. There's no doubt.
Are you going to acknowledge I was right on Cam Newton? 44%, 47%, 43%. I don't care if you're a star. You got to be in the mid to high 50s, don't you?
Yeah, I think, look, I've defended Cam, and I've called him Allen Iverson, but you got to deliver the points, and your best player has to set the intolerance for anything that gets in the way of winning.
So what did you make of that whole dress thing?
That's really on him. I think, you can't do that. You're the leader of the team. You can't do that. If the rules are the rules and you know the rules, and he, after the press conference, he wasn't denying what the rules were. There was no misunderstanding. He admitted he owned what he did. You can't do that. You're the leader of the team. Everybody's looking for you. It's a little bit like when Doug Peterson challenged the 2-yard gain on Monday night the other night. People said, well, okay, he made a mistake. No, you're sending a message to your team that you're going to do this. They're losing faith in you. They lose faith in you if you do something stupid. Your players are watching you too. just like Cam Newton's being watched by his other teammates. That you can't do that. You lose faith. You lose resolve. You lose some
credibility.
Credibility, exactly. Thank you. And I think that's what happens. So when you make a mistake like that, it's very difficult to overcome.
I think his mechanics have gone into the toilet.
I think what Howie said is true. Unless he plays with the lead, unless he can play from in front, I think they got to reevaluate what they're doing offensively. I think there's no doubt about it. And look, their offensive line's a mess right now.
Yeah.
They really struggled. And I think that he needs to reevaluate his preparation and his time. And they need to find out really what they want to become offensively, because they're not going to go anywhere with the way they're doing it right now.
Good seeing you, man.
Thanks.
Welcome back. Antonio Cromartie in 40 minutes from now played for the Colts. What's wrong with that staff and that roster? They play on Monday Night Football tonight against the Jets. I can't wait to watch that. And Clay Travis at the top of next hour has definitive, strong, great points on college football. We disagree on some things, but he is a fantastic guest. He'll be joining us from Nashville live. So there's a bunch of bowl games that got announced yesterday, and I only care about one. Is it Alabama-Washington? No. Is it Clemson-Ohio State? No. Is it the Great Rose Bowl with Penn State and USC? No. Is it the Great Orange Bowl with Florida State and Michigan? No. I only care about one bowl game. Tampa, Florida, January 2nd, Outback Bowl. Florida faces Iowa. And let me tell you why I care about that game. I made the biggest bet of my life before the season started. I'm not going to get into particulars, but it was a large bet. Iowa went 12-2 last year, returned 8 starters on offense and 8 on defense, returned a quarterback who will play in the NFL, the best pure corner in the conference, and an all-conference linebacker, and they didn't have to face the Buckeyes. I called a friend in Vegas who sets lines, and I said, I don't get it. What am I missing? The over-under's 8.5. He goes, well, the wise guys aren't jumping on it, so the wise guys think that's the right number. And I'm like, well, I think I'm smarter than the whole city of Las Vegas.
Oh.
So I'm not going to get into the amount. I didn't even tell my wife, but it's a large amount of money. Right now, Iowa sits at 8 wins. If they beat Florida, I win.
How much money are we talking?
I'm not going to tell you how much money. I will give you this hint, that we're going on vacation.
We are?
No, I mean my family.
Oh, okay.
If
you are
Iowa, at the start of next year, we're going on vacation. If Iowa wins and I win my bet, this is how my family will travel on vacation. And if you're watching on FS1, you're going to see a glorious picture. We're going to be traveling by private. Yeah. That is Uncle Colin. Private jet. I'm going to have nice sunglasses. I'm going to go to a Caribbean island.
You might want to return that shirt, though.
If Iowa loses, the vacation I'm going to take my family on in February is going to look like this. So it is the only game I care about. It is the most important game. It is January 2nd in Tampa, Florida against Iowa. Can you look up who the favorite in that game is? Because Iowa underachieved all year long. They lost at home to North Dakota State. I mean, they were ridiculous. They lost to Northwestern.
But you really did bet on this. This isn't even a thing. You really did it. But can you give us a hint? Not just saying your vacation, but like how much?
More than I am comfortable talking about.
Oh, that's not fair, because that could be like $5 and you could have some weird
thing. I wouldn't be uncomfortable talking about that. My job is to relate to the American public.
What kind of thing could the American public buy with the amount of money you
I'm not getting into
it.
it.
They can relate to that. Just put it in terms of like a car. Are we talking a Toyota? Are we talking a Lexus? Are we even talking a Toyota?
I'm just saying this. I never ask anything of my audience, right? I deliver for you because you. My job is to do a show. I've never asked anything from my audience to do for me. I'm asking you pray for me and my family.
What?
I am asking if you have a religious affinity or a background or some sort of connection to the man upstairs. Pray for me.
I'm so glad that you said Anne has a busy day, because that means she's not listening to this and she isn't terrified.
Can I tell you something? I watched that Raiders game yesterday. Raiders-Bills first downs were even. Total plays even. Total yards, total drives, yards per play, rushing, penalties, possession, virtually even. Who blew out who? Derek Carr and the Raiders blew him out. I'm telling you, man, you got to take the Raiders seriously. This team, they can lose statistical battles. They can lose the box score. They have 3 of the top 5 players in the league on that roster. Khalil Mack is remarkable. Derek Carr is Aaron Rodgers without the tood. And Amari Cooper is a monster outside. They have 3, and I mean star, Gronk, Eric Berry, Odell Beckham. That's the thing about New England, man. New England's winning with culture and coaching, but New England has lost in the last year. Chandler Jones, best pass rusher, gone. Jamie Collins, best athlete at linebacker, gone. Gronk, deep threat, gone. How much can you win on culture and coaching? I mean, I watch New England right now. They got to nibble you to death. If you outplay New England, you beat New England. Oakland, you can outplay Oakland, and they'll just create magic. You look at the teams in the league right now. There's Dallas has some stars. Raiders have stars. Seattle's got stars. Now, I watched New England yesterday against the Rams. They're just winning on culture. At some point, how far can you go, man? Chandler Jones, Jamie Collins, Gronk, they just aren't dynamic enough in New England. I know they're well coached, but, man, they got to play closer to perfect football. Sometimes they do. Clay Travis around the corner, hour 3. It's the Herd. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, FS1. Christine Leahy joining me in 5 minutes. Clay Travis stops by. If you love college football, he and I disagree on a lot. I don't share any sympathy for Penn State. I think Penn State and Oklahoma both had 2 ugly losses, and Ohio State did not have an ugly loss. I believe you have to contextualize the losses and the wins. Not all wins are the same and not all losses are the same. The best possible way to lose is to a good team on the road, a game in which you outplayed them. And Ohio State outplayed on the road for most of the game Penn State. Yards, time of possession, and a block kick changed the outcome. But Ohio State had no ugly losses. Penn State had 2 ugly losses. They lost a 4-loss Pitt, and they got boat raced by Michigan. I watched that game. It was awful. It wasn't even competitive. And Oklahoma had 2 ugly losses. They got smoked at home by Ohio State, and they lost to Houston, which has maybe 2 players on their roster that Oklahoma would even recruit. So I don't look just at wins. I look at losses. If you have an ugly loss or 2, I don't think you should play for a national title. Years ago, I defended LSU. They had 2 losses playing for the national championship. And I said, so what? They lost, overtime games in the SEC, and 5 of the top 10 teams in the country at the time were in the SEC. That's not the case anymore. But I contextualize. I'll tell you, I just contextualize everything. Because my belief is when you are talking about the best of anything, if I ran a newspaper or a magazine called Travel Magazine, and I said, I want you to rank the top 5 hotel chains in the country. Peninsula, Mandarin, Ritz, all these nice hotel chains. When you start ranking the best of the best, you have to contextualize thread count on the sheets, the quality of the real estate, what are the views in the suites, what are the food is like. It's very easy to say, Ritz-Carlton's better than Motel 6, or the Mandarin's better than blah, 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 days in. But when you get to the Mandarin against the Peninsula, every little thing counts. And if you have an ugly loss, that is a major ding for me. If you have Ohio State had none. Alabama had none. Clemson had 1. Washington had, again, Washington's loss is not a terrible loss. USC's rolling, and that game was 17-13 USC going into the 4th. But Penn State got humiliated physically, and then they lost to Pitt. So I don't want to. I don't. And let's bring in Clay Travis, who has OutkickTheCoverage.com, his behemoth of a website that gets massive traffic, and he's got a new radio show at Fox Sports Radio, 6 to 9 a.m. So let's start with this. You don't like Penn State. You thought they kind of got hosed here. What do you make of my take, which is, listen, I like them too, but I just can't get past them getting absolutely physically humiliated by Michigan.
Yeah, it's a great point, Colin. So I just wrote about this, and I think you have to, when you get into the playoff committee, what you end up doing, to me, is you end up with a balancing test between best and most deserving. That's the way I like to think about it. And a lot of times it's easy, right? Alabama's the best, and they are the most deserving from the SEC.
Yep.
Same thing with Clemson, same thing with Washington. Honestly, same thing with Oklahoma in the Big 12. The challenge this year has been the Big 10. And so I think that clearly Penn State is the most deserving. You would probably agree with that, right? Like, they went 9-1 in conference. They beat Ohio State head-to-head. Just looking at their resume in the Big 10, they're the most deserving of the Big 10 teams, I think. Where you get challenging is, who's the best? And this is where you look at Vegas. This is where you look at the game they played. And to me, this is where you look at the evolution of the teams. And Colin, I'm not convinced right now that if we got to play next week Ohio State against Penn State, that Ohio State would win. I think you look at what Penn State has done since they won that game. I mean, remember, Penn State started 2-2, right? They lost their tough rivalry game in state against Pittsburgh, 42-39 on the road. Same Pittsburgh team that was good enough to go on the road and beat Clemson, right? Like, Pitt might not have had a great season, but when they played well, their ceiling was pretty high. I would put them as a top 15 caliber team at the high end, right? And they got dominated by Michigan. There's no other way to describe it for Penn State. But to me, I look at the evolution of a team. And so at 2-2, you thought Penn State was not very good. When you add in the 9 straight that they won, the fact that they scored 38 or more in every game after they played against Ohio State, the fact that they won every game by 7 or more, and the ones before the Big Ten title game by 14 or more, I think Penn State is getting better week to week. I'm not sure that Ohio State is, and I like Trace McSorley more than I like J.T. Barrett, which we would have never said back in September. So I'm not sure, Colin, if they played this weekend on a neutral site, that we would get much of a boat race at all. I think it would be very tight, and I would bet on Penn State. Maybe not to win, certainly to cover. I don't think there's a lot that separates these two teams right now.
So what about my belief that conference championships matter? Just like if your kids and my kids applied to Harvard, GPA clearly matters, but Harvard's going to look at test scores, community service. They're going to look for geographical diversity. They don't want a bunch of kids from Boston going to Harvard. They want a New York kid, an Atlanta kid, a rural kid, a poor kid, an Asian kid. So how about this? I don't believe that playing in your conference championship, I think it should help. But good God, Clay, if you look at the Big Ten or the SEC, it is ridiculous. One division of the Big Ten has Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State. The other has Iowa, Wisconsin, and Nebraska and junk. So what about the idea that you don't have to play in your conference championship because they're uneven anyway?
Well, 100% you and I would probably agree with this. Divisions shouldn't exist in college football. I think I would go back to before the realignment started, before you ended up with this conference title game business 25 years ago with the SEC. And I've told Commissioner Greg Sankey this over and over and over again, to the point where he says, I know how you feel, because I come to him all the time with this argument. I say, look, just if you're going to play a conference title game, just take the 2 best teams. How would that have been impactful in the Big Ten, for instance, this year? Colin, you'd have gotten the game we want to see, Penn State against Ohio State, because they were the 2 best teams, even though they happened to both be on the eastern side. And I went back and looked at this. 25 years now we've had the SEC title game. 12 of those 25 years you would have had different teams play if you didn't have a random team coming from the West and the East, right? So to me, what you do is if you want to play conference title games, and personally, I would scrap them. Because you know what I call a conference title game? The regular season. If you play 8 or 9 games in the regular season, most of the time you know who the best team is by the end of the season. That's why you play the regular season. I don't need one additional title game to tell me who the champ is. I would scrap it, go to 8, take the 5 regular season major conference champs, add in 3 wild cards, play the first 4 games on the higher-seeded campus stadium field, right? That's what everybody loves about college football, the pomp, circumstance, pageantry. You'd have a whale of games going on. Then you move into the semifinals, play them on neutral sites, and obviously finish off at the championship at a neutral site.
Clay Travis, OutKickTheCoverage.com. Also on Fox Sports Radio, 6 to 9 Monday through Friday, a.m. Eastern. Okay, let's go to the games. Alabama, Washington. I don't think you can beat Alabama with a stationary quarterback. I think if the committee really wanted to make it interesting, I'd make Alabama face 2 mobile quarterbacks. I'd have made them face Deshaun Watson first and then maybe J.T. Barrett second. I think this virtually guarantees Alabama gets into the championship. Your thoughts on Alabama, Washington?
I think that Alabama will murder Washington, Colin. It's basically going to be a home field. Alabama gets to go right back to the Georgia Dome, the place where they have already played, and just put it on Florida. They look like they were playing against a JV team with the Gators out there. And you're right. You look at who Nick Saban has lost to. It's Nick Marshall, it's Cam Newton, it's Johnny Manziel, it's Tim Tebow, even it's Trevor Knight. You know, it's Bo Wallace, it is Chad Kelly. It's guys who can move in the pocket and extend plays. And I don't think Jake Browning can do that. Moreover, running against primarily a pro-style offense. I know Washington has a little bit of variation that they run in that offense. This is like Nick Saban being able to prepare for what he knows best. Alabama can win every kind of type of game now. High scoring, low scoring, physical, all different sorts of finesse. But they're going to get to do what they do best against Washington, which is line up and just beat the crap out of a team. I don't see any way that Washington's going to win. Colin, I think this is an underreported but worth discussing element. I think ESPN desperately needs Alabama and Ohio State in this title game. Remember, the ratings were awful last year. Yeah. Monday Night Football ratings for them have tanked this year. I don't think it's a coincidence that suddenly the committee can say, oh, we're rewarding a conference championship, and you bump Clemson over, but Ohio State stays in that 2-3 matchup. I think that it's really set up perfectly for them. They want Urban Meyer against Nick Saban. They want the big, sexy story, the power from the Big Ten against the power from the SEC. If we get another regional rematch, Alabama against Clemson, I think the country has already said we don't really care that much. Clemson's not a national program. As good as Deshaun Watson is, I don't think the viewers come in. Everybody wants Alabama and Ohio State. I don't know what's going to happen in that Ohio State-Clemson game because both of those teams have been a little bit erratic to me, but I know desperately that all the suits at ESPN, they're going to be on their hands and their knees praying to God that Urban Meyer and the Ohio State Buckeyes win that game because they want Alabama, Ohio State so badly.
Okay, by the way, the top four of the committee, if you ask me who I thought just the best four teams were, forget deserving. My opinion is it's Alabama. I think Michigan's great. I would have put Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, and USC, and then I'd have like a Penn State right out of that. My first two out, Penn State would be my first out. I'd have Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Penn State, Wisconsin first out. If I just said to you, forget deserving, who do you think are the four best teams in America today?
Yeah, that's a really fun argument, right? Well, I think Alabama has the potential to be the greatest team in the history of college football. I'm not even exaggerating about this. I know we live in a hyperbolic era, but if Alabama goes 15-0, I think they have a certain claim that they can be the greatest college football team, certainly in the modern era. It's hard to compare teams when you go back very far. So I think they're clearly number one across the board. I think they're going to be favored substantially by everybody else. Colin, I probably actually agree with you there because I think Ohio State and Michigan are the two best teams in the Big Ten purely from a talent perspective.
Right.
I still have a lot of reservations about what exactly happened when Michigan lost to Iowa. That's a bad loss, right? They shouldn't lose that game. But Michigan outplayed Ohio State in Columbus. They should have won that football game.
Yep.
And I think USC, the way they're playing right now, I think that they were probably the fourth best team. And by the way, I'm not sure that Ohio State or Michigan, I might even argue with you and say it's Bama 1, USC 2, and then Ohio State and Michigan in either order at 3-4. Here's what I think about is funny Vegas-wise, Colin. You know who one of their top 5 teams is, according to some of the guys I talked to?
Who?
LSU. You go back and look at LSU's schedule right now in terms of their talent. They choked it away against Wisconsin. They scored at the last possible second that was right after the game ended against Auburn on the road. They gave away the game against Florida. I mean, we're just atrocious. Ended the game trying to go in from a 1-yard line for a score, and then played Alabama about as well as anybody's going to play Alabama, I think, this year. That's the challenge about best versus most deserving. LSU, I think, is without a doubt one of the top 5, 6, 7 teams in the country. They went 7-4. So there's no way I don't think that you can justify putting them in there, even though, look at all these teams right now. Would it shock you if LSU lined up and beat Michigan or beat Ohio State if Leonard Fournette came back healthy in a bowl game?
No.
And I think that's what surprises people. And this is something I think you'll love too. College football fans, Colin, uniquely, don't understand probability. They don't understand the same way that NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, every other sport, the NHL, sometimes good teams lose. And we don't assume that if something happens once in those other sports, that it's going to happen every other time, right? The Warriors lost, the Cavs lost 3 times to the Warriors. They might lose by 40 in a game, right? In the finals. It happens every now and then. But that doesn't mean they can't win the championship. In college football, we got all these pearl clutchers, Colin, who lean back on their fainting couches and says, what if we get a rematch? We already know who won. Well, you saw one 60-minute game. I think that Ohio State might well beat Penn State if they played it again in that Nittany Lion game, right? It's shocking to me how often people assume in college football in a way that they don't in any other sport that whatever happens once would happen again and again throughout perpetuity. It's because we never get rematches by and large, with the possible exception of LSU-Bama in that title game. If you ever doubted how much games can change from one to the next, LSU went on the road and won 9-6 in Tuscaloosa. They didn't cross midfield in the Sugar Bowl. Alabama was the better team.
Right.
But in 60 minutes, anything can happen. It's why we love college sports and college football.
Outkickthecoverage.com. Clay Travis. Great stuff, bud. Thank you, man.
Always enjoy it, Colin. Appreciate it.
Good stuff. Good, smart college football talk, Clay Travis. That's good stuff. Very happy with that right now. I got to read some spots here. I'm getting behind. When you have guests and you start talking football, Christine, you get behind on spots. My spot load is very heavy right now. I'm going to have to go on some...
And you can't tell the spots to stop talking. You can't make space that way. You have to do it.
I'm not going to get into this. By the way, you can make a bunch of excuses in life, but eventually, if you just put your head down, you will persevere over time. For some people, it takes longer. They have tougher upbringings. They have, in our, not ideal lives. But, all this Cam Newton stuff, oh, poor Cam, this, poor Cam, that. Cam's completing 45% of his throws in the last 3 weeks. Not good enough. Okay, like Jameis Winston, look what Jameis Winston's had to deal with. He's got a young roster. Historically crappy franchise. I mean, they're the Browns with better weather. He had to travel cross-country, trailed in the fourth yesterday. He's got the 17th best running game and the 20th best offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus. He's on his second head coach. And all Jameis Winston does is put that team on his shoulders, make great plays, go on the road, fourth quarter. He was so good late yesterday. Well, Cam doesn't have this, Cam doesn't have this. What does Jameis Winston have? He's on his second head coach in 2 years. Offensive line average, running game average, flying cross country. Off the biggest win in the franchise in the last 10 years, he got to get all these young guys, take a deep breath, get on a plane, fly to dangerous San Diego where they're always scoring points, going up against a Hall of Fame quarterback, and all Jameis Winston did, no excuses, put the team on his back, and they won. I've said this before. I don't want to hear about Cam's, well, I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. To me, Derek Carr on the West Coast, Jameis Winston on the East Coast, those guys are franchise quarterbacks. I mean, what did Derek Carr, what did he inherit? The laughable Raiders for the preceding 10 years? They were a mess. I look at Jameis Winston and Derek Carr. They're very similar guys. If you look at their numbers this year, it is remarkable. They're great on the road. They're a combined 10-1 on the road. They both have 11 touchdown road passes. They both have 24 touchdown passes. These guys are franchise guys. And in both cases, Derek Carr and Jameis Winston, look what they inherited. The Raiders were a grease fire for a decade. Tampa Bay's been a grease fire for a decade. Those guys have just willed their way to wins. Cam Newton is just all excuses. Well, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. Dude, you can't even get your wardrobe right. Come on, the last month it's like 44%, 45%, 48%. You can make all these excuses, man. Jameis Winston had a couple of plays that were, what's the one we have now? Was this week or last week? Couple of weeks ago against the Bears. Just run the play and the play-by-play on this. Winston's remarkable talent.
Shotgun formation. Here's the snap, and Winston dropping to throw a pressure. Winston avoids it, rolls out to the right side, still looking. Still, he's back in his own end zone. Look out, Davis. Got a block. Winston running, got a block again. He's still alive. Throws the ball downfield. He's got Mike Evans, and he goes up, bags to catch at the 38-yard line. What a play by Jameis Winston.
God. But again, you can make a bunch of excuses for Derek Carr and Jameis. Those guys have had nothing but chaos around them. And Jameis and Derek have just put their franchise on their shoulders. I mean, Jameis reshaped his body. Apparently went to the Pro Bowl with Russell Wilson. They used a trainer, Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's trainer. I don't want to hear about all Cam's offensive line and Cam's this. Cam had 10 Pro Bowlers on his roster last year. Jameis had 5. Who's got better players around him? It's not Jameis. And Cam Newton's got better players. And Cam Newton's got a Super Bowl coach. Who's Jameis have? Dirk Cutter. Second coach, 2 years. I mean, Cam Newton's had Mike Shula for years working with him. He's had continuity. It's a better franchise. It's just a bunch of excuses. And again, I think Cam's an absurd talent. I think as a talent, Cam is absurdly gifted. But I think we make constant excuses for him. Herb brought to you by TrueCar. Save time and money. Download their app. See what others paid for it. Guaranteed savings up to $3,000 off MSRP. Save time and money. Download the TrueCar app today. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
The Bulls have suspended Rajon Rondo for one game. He'll miss tonight's game for conduct detrimental to the team. And now there are reports coming out that he got in a heated exchange with assistant coach Jim Boylan during and after the Mavericks game. He apparently threw a towel towards or at him, and then it escalated after the game. Did you know that he has been suspended 7 times since 2012?
If you cannot get along with Doc Rivers and Rick Carlisle, okay, it's not anybody's fault but your own. I like Rondo, but it's almost like if you were going to date a guy and he had a pattern, if you don't buy into the pattern, that's on you.
Yeah.
Okay, like this guy gets suspended. He doesn't get along with coaches.
No. I've always defended Rondo because I think he's kind of one of those guys that is just so smart, and his basketball IQ is so high that sometimes he has a hard time relating to people.
And by the way, that's what I've heard too. Like people are like, he is such a savant with basketball. He's one of those people you may work with him at your work. He's super smart, but he's almost like not happy unless he's unhappy.
Right. So, but here's the thing. Jim Boylan, I asked around about Jim Boylan. Like, is he one of those guys that Rondo just can't get on the same page with? And they said, no, Jim Boylan's actually a really, really smart guy. So this kind of sets off a red flag for me on Rondo. If he can't get along with this guy and he's already got his history, I'm starting to wonder he's got maybe a problem with authority.
People
it's not good.
Have habits. Believe them. People will show you who they are. Johnny Manziel showed everybody who he was. Believe him.
It's just sad because years ago when he was with the Celtics, I think a lot of people would have put them in his top 5. Top 5 for point guards.
He was the
and
best.
Look at him now.
He was the best. Well, it's the same. My dad used to always say, guys manage their money better than themselves.
Yeah.
That's why Wall Street and prisons are filled with men. Because we manage our money as men better than we manage ourselves. And it's like, Rondo is a great player. He doesn't manage himself very well.
That could be very true.
Yeah.
He's apologized to the team, but I've heard that this is going to be an ongoing issue with the Bulls. Speaking of Doc Rivers, so Rondo used to play for Doc Rivers, and he can't say much these days because Doc's getting in a little trouble himself. We know he just got fined $15,000 for looking like he was going to fight the ref, and he was caught by TMZ Sports and actually says he deserved the punishment.
Have you and Mr. Maurer made up?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He said that the ejection was deserved.
Well, it probably was.
You think so?
Yeah, you don't act like that. That's how you should get thrown out.
Oh, well,
By the way, have you been to that restaurant? It's Catch.
No, but I ran into TMZ this weekend.
Me too. Same place.
It doesn't make you. The bottom line is, if you live in this part of the country and you live in this city and you live especially
TMZ
where you live, they're everywhere. Like TMZ is everywhere in town. Everywhere. There's cameras
they are
everywhere.
But that place is called Catch, and I swear everyone is there every single night, and TMZ is there every single night.
Of course.
So if you go there, you know you're getting hit by the paparazzi. Where you and I were, I had no idea that was going to happen.
By the way, the TMZ guys are nice. I'm not.
Oh yeah, they totally are.
Yeah,
unless they're like, I think there are some that go to an extreme, like following the celebrities around and getting them in car accidents. I'm not down with that.
Right.
But the rest of them, yes. And finally, the Rams are being kind of confusing right now about what's going on with Jeff Fisher's contract. There are reports that they might have a new deal in place where they could get out after a year. Rams are refusing to acknowledge whether or not this is true or where they are in negotiations. Jared Goff, though, was asked about it, and here he is.
Yeah, it's great. Coach Fisher is the guy who obviously brought me in here, and I'm excited for him and excited to continue to be playing for him.
So he seems to think that Jeff Fisher's sticking around.
He's not going to say it if he didn't agree with it. I mean, he's trapped. I feel bad for the kid. I think quarterbacks need offensive coaches. I think they're better. Christine, the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
4-time Pro Bowler, Rex Ryan, Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, Chuck Pagano. Let's bring on Antonio Cromartie, who knows all about Rex Ryan, all about facing Tom Brady. So everybody calls me, Antonio, a Tom Brady homer.
Brady homer?
It's not that I'm a Tom Brady homer. I appreciate great. Okay, so let's go. You were known as a long, disruptive, athletic corner. Are there secrets against Brady?
It's not secrets. I just think that when you're playing against Tom Brady, you're not playing against Tom Brady as a corner. You're playing against the receivers. And it's once you start understanding the route concepts and what they're doing, and me playing against him 14 times.
14 times?
14 times.
How many times you beat him?
Maybe 3. Maybe 3. I think it was 3 times. But I think it's not about playing against him. I think we, as defense as a whole, we try to put so much emphasis on Tom Brady. But you have Gronkowski, you have the guys coming out of the backfield.
You have a bunch of quick, small
guys. And what Tom Brady does very well is mismatches. And if he can get a running back on a linebacker, he's already won that down.
So you believe when you go and you're facing Tom, you think he's made his mind up before the snap?
Yes. I honestly think I do. He may look you off one way, but he's already know he's going up.
Do you think when the ball was snapped, did he know where Antonio Cromartie? Did he know where you were on the field? Did you ever?
I'm pretty sure he figured out. He knew where I was.
Did he ever target you at the end of your career when you're slightly slower? Did he target you?
No, I don't think I've ever targeted like as much as I thought I would be against Tom Brady.
By the way, one of the guys you love, you know, Darrelle Revis. Now he's
definitely
okay. Now let's be honest about this. I'm not trying to pick on anybody.
No, go ahead.
But it's about time he moved to another position, right? Am I wrong?
I think it's time. I think he feel like it's time too. I think that when he looks at everything that's going on with him, and the season's not going very well, he's not having a year that he's wanted to have. He's not the Darrelle Revis of old. I think he's looking forward to moving to and starting a new position right now for himself.
Safety.
Yes.
But you know what, man? Safety's about hitting people. Okay, why didn't you just go, I'm going to go safety?
Because I feel like I still can play.
So
corner.
So that's the whole. That's my point. The first of all, corner. You have to have the biggest ego to be a corner because seriously,
you know I got that.
Well, but honestly, I do believe that you have to be overconfident because first of all, you're on an island.
Definitely.
So A, you're on an island. B, you're facing their best athletes. Yeah. So much of what you guys do is shoulders up.
Yes.
Is absolutely believing I can do it. Once you lose confidence, you're done.
Yeah, I think so. At the corner position, it's all about confidence. You got to have a certain swagger about yourself. And I think once that confidence is gone, you're either finna retire or you move into another position.
Darrelle Revis, could he play safety?
I think he can. Rex Ryan put us in a lot of different positions when he was there.
Okay.
So I've played safety during training camp. Darrelle has played safety a little bit.
Okay.
So he understands the game. His IQ is very high.
Oh, no, knows what he's doing.
To put him at a guy like that can still run a little bit, to cover in, not playing strong safety, but put him at a free safety where he can roam the field, run sideline to sideline. I don't see why he couldn't do it. It's not hard of a job to line somebody up to make sure everyone's in the right place and play in the middle of the field.
So, again, why don't you do it?
Oh, I'd love to. I don't have no problem moving to free safety.
So you would move to free safety?
Yeah.
How old are you right now?
32.
Are you in good enough shape to play it?
I'm in great shape.
What do you mean great? What's great shape mean? Look at these abs, dude. I'm in great shape. What is great shape?
When I say I'm in great shape, I'm 209 pounds. This is the lightest I've been in my career.
Like how many hours a day do you spend at the gym?
Come on, tell me.
I will go, my hours start at 11 and I'm done at 3.
4 hours a day working
4 hours. And that's field work. I'm still doing film study on myself, even from the past, just watching film on myself.
Do you like watching film?
Love it.
Really?
I'm a film junkie.
Are you really?
Yes.
What do you eat?
I eat bad.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
So that's why you got to be in the gym 4 hours.
So I'm McDonald's.
Oh, what are you doing?
I'm Checkers.
Checkers.
Oh yeah.
Checkers is good. It's when I lived in Tampa.
Great.
They have great buns.
Well, they also have
like
great
their
fries.
Oh, the fries.
They're all spicy.
Oh, so good. But I'm a junk food eater. Like I have Oreos at home. I have sour cream and onion chips. I can't help it. I have honey buns, zebra cakes.
Honey buns? Hell. God.
Zebra cakes, you said?
Yes.
Oh, those used to be my favorite in lunch boxes.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but you're not a pro athlete. You need to have some kale shakes.
And you know what? I do have kale shakes.
Okay.
I eat healthy sometimes. But the majority of the time, I like to eat. I have a problem with that.
Okay, I want to go into these young quarterbacks. Now,
Okay.
I've said this. In the NFL, we're always talking about, what's going to happen? I think Derek Carr's great. I think Mariota's great. I think Jameis Winston's great. Like, those guys to me are like, okay, I don't know about the new guys. I'm not going to judge Jared Goff yet. I'm not going to go Paxton Lynch, Carson. Forget it.
Yeah.
But when you look at these young guys, okay, let's start with Derek Carr.
Definitely.
What do you see with Derek Carr, the Raiders, that you like?
Everything. His competitive side, the way that his determination to make his team that want to win.
Yeah.
The throws that he's make is unbelievable.
Dimes.
And tough. The guy comes in, dislocate his pinky finger on his throwing hand.
Jam it
and
back
then
in.
comes right back in and throws a dart down the middle of the field down to the tight end. So, I mean, I love that about him. And he's just competitive. He wants to win every single game. When you have a quarterback that's like that, it makes everyone else around you better also.
Okay, let's go to Marcus Mariota, who had that great Oregon career, and then he moves into Tennessee, and, I mean, big, strong strikes. Like, what do you see with Marcus Mariota?
Athletic. Doesn't have great accuracy when he throws the ball. I think he's better outside of the pocket than he is inside the pocket.
You like him moving?
I like him moving. I like to see him out in the pocket, getting the rollouts, doing boots, getting the ball where he has a running pass, where he has a pass run read. And I think that can help him out a lot more. That'll make him a lot more dangerous rather than him sitting in the pocket.
Now, Jameis Winston, I love the way he throws the ball. What do you like about Jameis Winston?
I think he has the same characteristics as Derek Carr. He's a true leader. He's gonna make sure everyone's doing their job and their job only.
Right.
Another thing he does, if he make a mistake, he's not gonna sit here and blame it on anything else.
Right.
He's gonna own up to it. And I think that's what separates him and Derek Carr from a lot of other younger guys.
They own their stuff.
They own what they do wrong, and I think that's what everybody loves about them. Even from tops down in the organization, that's what everybody loves about them. They own up to their own stuff. They go out and go play football, and they win football games. And for the change that's going on in Tampa now, from last year to this year right here with Jameis, he's had a great rookie year, and I think he's even having a better second year.
Do they changed coaches? Hasn't missed a beat. Changed their coaches.
And haven't missed not one beat.
No. Okay, so I'm down on Cam. Okay, here's my thing about Cam. I say this all the time. I know Nicolas Cage is a star. If you saw Nicolas Cage, the actor, in a mall, you'd be like, oh my gosh, Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Okay, he's a star. He's not a great actor. I know Cam's a star. He's good looking. He got the fashion, got the big arm. I know he's talented. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a star, and I think he's a ridiculous talent. But his accuracy's not good. He can be moody. I think he's a different quarterback winning than losing. I think his mechanics look awful this year. Okay, am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Oh, well, timeout.
No, Cam is a great player.
He's a great
athlete.
He's a great athlete.
And when you put it into it, as a quarterback, you have your highs and your lows. But when he's at his low, it's very low. When he's at his high, he's very high. And you have to be the same no matter how you are. No matter if you're winning, your team is losing, no matter how your season is going, you have to be the same person.
And he's not.
And you can tell. And
how can you tell?
Just the way it's the way he plays. You can look at the interviews that he does. They're different. When they're winning, I'm at an all-time high. When I'm losing, it's something that's very low.
And so I
just think it brings down a lot of stuff that he's trying to live up to what everybody else wants him to be, rather than being himself and being the Cam Newton that everyone knows he can be. I think his expectations is, okay, he's a great athlete. He's not a quarterback. Well, we all knew that when you was coming in. Be the athlete that everyone expects you to be, that came out of Auburn, that went 15-1 last year. Don't try to be a pocket passer. You're not doing a lot of running this year as you did last year.
There's no question. They've taken the runs out. And you think you should run more.
I think you should.
Be who you are.
Be who you are. And I think you will win a lot more games. You'll be a lot more satisfied with yourself than being someone you're really not.
Andrew Luck, you played with him briefly.
Yes.
What do you make of him? He plays tonight.
Love the dude.
Why?
Love him. Just there when I was there for those 6 or 7 weeks, he's a great dude. And when I tell you, knows defenses, understands the offense very well, can make adjustments on the run as a young quarterback, and just goes. And competitive, doesn't like to lose, doesn't like to throw interceptions.
What's he like at practice?
Competitive. He takes control of the offense. And when I mean take control, someone jumps outside, they go after practice and run half gashers while they're doing on the plays that they have false starts on.
So Luck and the coaches is that Luck inspired or is that somebody else?
I think that's Luck. I think that's all Luck. He doesn't want to have mental errors during the game. So to eliminate those mental errors, you take care of during practice. And I think that's what he tries to do a great job of with the guys that's around to try to make sure he gets those guys going in the right direction.
Hey, show your shoes on TV.
So
Time out. Look at his shoes. Time
Red
out. Put them
velvet.
out. What are they?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
These Ferragamos.
Ferragamo.
Are they velvet?
Oh, yeah, red velvet.
Okay, I'm going to strongly encourage you get off the Snickers. That's my only advice for you.
You have a thing against cookies, the Oreo
It's not
cookies.
against cookie. If you're trying to play the hardest position in sports, you can't have, what was that, zebra thing?
Zebra
cakes.
What
They're
in
so
the
good.
world is that?
Little cakes. Of
Oh,
zebra.
little cakes. They're so yummy.
Can't you go 4 years of no cakes?
I did that.
You're 6'2". What do you run a 40 in right now?
Probably about 4.4.
Why don't you stop cakes? If I just said to you, no more cakes 4 years.
I did that. I did it for 5 years.
No benefit?
No cakes.
It didn't serve a benefit. It didn't serve anything.
Yeah, so keep eating the zebra cakes. Maybe
It
do
didn't
you like
serve-
red velvet
Listen, I'm
cakes
just
too?
like, what does it matter? If I'm burning all those calories within the first hour, why can't I eat what I want to eat?
When you're getting older, it's going to slow down.
Stop trying to yuck on his cookies.
Hey.
I'll wait till that when I get older. When I'm 36, 37, I'm retired. I can sit at home on my back porch with a cigar and fish in my lake, and I'm good to go.
You start eating, if you don't break the cakes out, you're going to look like Barkley
You're
about 1 year
why
out
are
of the
you shaming him from eating good
I could
food?
never look like Barkley. My metabolism is nothing like that.
I love him. Hey, nice meeting you, man.
Nice meeting you.
The Herd brought to you by TrueCar. Ready to buy a new one? Download their app. Save time and money. Download the TrueCar app today. I may be a little high on the Raiders, but man, yesterday, they are magic, man. They were outplayed in the first half. Statistically, the game was even, and they blow out the Bills. They have three of the best players in the league. First of all, Amari Cooper at wide receiver is a mega talent. He's going to go down as a 7-time Pro Bowler, a total mega talent. Derek Carr and Amari Cooper connected yesterday against the Bills. Here it is.
Pointing out the blitzers here. They come from all different levels. Carr going to throw a lob right sideline. Amari Cooper's got it. 5 down to the goal line. He's in. Touchdown! Raiders! 37-yarder over the top to Amari Cooper.
So they can beat you over the top. Khalil Mack is just scratching the surface. He is like a young Von Miller, but almost more explosive. Khalil Mack is, you just can't, the chances, how the hell did he end up playing in college at Buffalo? How did Khalil Mack end up at Buffalo? He would have been the best defensive player in any major conference, including the SEC. He closed out the win yesterday. Here it is.
He'll drop and throw from the end zone. Holds it. Ball got hit. It's up in the air. It's intercepted by Nate Allen. The ball got hit by Khalil Mack. In the gun goes Taylor. Slot right. Irvin around the edge. They push him upfield late. Mack got it from behind. He slips out. The ball's free. Who's got it? Khalil's got it again. He did it again. Another strip sack to take the game for the Raiders.
He's one of the 5 best football players in the National Football League, and he's a baby. Amari Cooper is one of the 15 best players. Baby, Derek Carr is one of the 15 best players. I mean, they have stars. I know New England's got the culture, but at some point, New England is not explosive enough. Chandler Jones, explosive, gone. Gronk, explosive, gone. Jamie Collins, dynamic, gone. I mean, I get the whole culture coaching thing. I'm a fan of the Patriots. But, man, you can outplay the Raiders for long stretches. And pow, 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 3 touchdowns. I mean, they have 3 of the top 15 guys in the league. They are so explosive. Derek Carr's my MVP. I don't even know why we argue about it. He's remarkable. But Mike Lombardi, personnel guy, he doesn't even think they're going to win their division.
Look, I've been critical of the Raiders, and I think the Raiders are a good offense, but there's no gimme that they're going to win the division. If they lose in Kansas City, which is not an easy place to win, how do they win the division? They would be 2 games behind Kansas City and a game in the loss column. They're going to win this thing out, and the Raiders are a wild card. And we're talking about the Raiders. I like the Raiders. I'm not killing them. But Kansas City is the sleeping giant. Andy Reid has the greatest thing going. Nobody's paying attention to my team. All I just keep doing is winning.
Listen, I love Andy Reid, but I'm sitting watching that Raiders game yesterday, and they just couldn't get it going for 2.5 quarters. And you look up, bang, 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 touchdown, playmaker, game over. Route, minutes, route over. Man, they are so much. They are the best TV product in the league. Whether they're the best team, as far as a television product, they are so much fun to watch. LA is going to end up with the Rams and the Chargers. That's the fun team to watch. God, we end up with the Rams. God. Sheesh. Raiders are fun. Raider fans used to think I hated the Raiders for years, and it was like, no, you were terrible. One of the things, like, bad teams don't bother me, but poorly run businesses bother me. Mm-hmm. Like, I just didn't like, for years and years, LeBron, he had no help from above. Like the Cavs are not necessarily well run, and then LeBron comes back. Like, I didn't like the Cavs, the infrastructure. Like, I don't like poorly run businesses, period, sports or not. One of the things I appreciate about New England, the St. Louis Cardinals, the San Antonio Spurs, they're buttoned up, they have their act together. I mean, Raiders right now, they are doing a great job with personnel. They're not only a good team, they're well run, and they weren't for 15 years. Great show. Speak for yourself later. In Los Angeles, it's The Herd.